Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's public hearings for Thursday, April 17th, 2025. Today's public hearings are convened under the provisions of the Local Government Act of British Columbia to hear submissions relative to the proposed bylaws. All persons who believe that their interest in property is affected by one of the proposed bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters in the proposed bylaw. I would ask those members of the public who wish to speak to please commence your address to this board by clearly stating your name. The board will not debate the matters of a proposed bylaw with individual citizens, but members of the board may ask questions of you following your presentation. The main function of this public hearing is to listen to your views. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. First public hearing. Bylaw number 2869 would consider a site-specific amendment to the RL1 rural zone at 2990 Trans-Canada Highway in Sumlin Valley to enable an expanded commercial compost facility on a portion of the property. Ms. Corporate Officer, are there any written submissions?
There are no written submissions for this matter.
Thank you very much. Are there any in-person submissions? Is there anyone here to speak to any questions that members of the board might have regarding this change? Sir, if you'd like to come up to the podium, please state your name.
Tim Weaver, environmental and engineering and consulting biologist, working with Terra, who owns the facility.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of the board have questions? Director Haughton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed, I've driven by that as a lot of people have over the years, probably the previous owners producing a product that was pretty contaminated of everything that nobody wanted to take at the time. And I think they had issues with getting rid of it, and then they had the fire, and then bulldozed it out into the marshland. And then what is the plan with the product that's going to be going there now? Where will it go? Because I know the adjoining ranches right around it would not take any of the previous owners' compost because it was so badly contaminated. And how are you dealing with the moving out or the encroachment into the marshlands? It seems like it's going a little further east all the time with the product. So
Yeah,
that's the concerns I have. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've inspected them. I'm actually not an employee of the company. I'm a hired third party. So I've looked at it. There's nothing actually bulldozed into the marshland, but there was, there's storage of compost in the field. So, and it's still stored there. The new owners are screening through it, like basically removing the wood and then selling the compost. So it's, there's a good size stockpile there, so they'll take them a bit of time to get through it. But it cleans up nicely and the product is good and people are buying it. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. So I read a report about 2017 report that was done, the environmental study. There was a bunch of things in there. It talked about the water between this pad and the storage. It talked about the leach pond integrity. It talked about the facility being too close to the riparian area, the sensitivity of the ecosystem, and just how everything had extended too far. It also said it should never be extended north, and it was off the pad, some of the compost and things. So my question is, you're asking for an expansion prior to addressing these issues. Why would the proponent not address these issues first, just as an environmental concern?
Yeah, so the actual facility footprint hasn't changed. So the concrete pad's still the same. but the original development encroached onto the creek buffer. So as part of the requirements for permits and development and rezoning is that they'll have to reestablish so that it's all scheduled. Basically, it's just at the end of the summer when we're going to the fall is when the replanting is going to happen. So it's just like a weather dependent thing. So, and then this compost that's stored off the pad, it's currently authorized now under the new ALC non-farm use permit. So that was the issue originally, was the farm use permit was this big. And then over time, the previous owner's operation, like storage area, crept. So then the ELC wanted a reapplication to include the storage area of the compost. So they approved that early last year or late last year. So, but they're trying to screen through that material because it's legacy material and they don't need to have that huge storage space like previous owners did. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Understand that Director Newstater is joining us online. We cannot actually. Oh, we have, okay. Okay, thank you. No, sorry, I just was informed that she was participating online, but I guess not.
No, I've got a message. I'm getting messages from her that she's online.
If we could somehow confirm that Director Newstater is Director Newstater online and simply an interested party watching the meeting, or is she actually taking part in a manner which will allow her to vote and speak? I think that is the crux of the question here. Director Newstater, are you participating in the meeting or are you just watching?
I was planning to be, but I do see maybe an alternate was requested accidentally. So I will converse with my alternate and let you know.
So, all right. So who is actually here for Director Newstater? What a silly question to have to ask. Sorry. So Director Bepple is here and she will be voting, etc.
Okay,
Director
that sounds
Newstater,
good.
You'll just be,
It sounds like there's a communication overlap, which happens. So no problem. Thanks, Chair.
all right. Okay. That was fun. All right. Just when you think that you've seen it all, something comes along and you go, that's completely new. Does anyone else have, from the gallery or anyone else here on the board have any questions? So I'm going to call for further representations. I'm going to call a second time for further representations. Calling a third and final time for further representations. There being no further speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. We move on to the second public hearing. And this is regarding bylaw number 2874, which would amend zoning bylaw number 2400 by rezoning 6945 Trans-Canada Highway in Wallachine, BC from MH1 Manufactured Home Park to RL1 Rural to bring the property into compliance with actual use and enable an additional dwelling. Ms. Corporate Officer, are there any written submissions?
There are no written submissions with respect to this matter.
Thank you. Are there any in-person submissions regarding this? All right. All right. Calling a second time for further representation. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this? And calling a third and final time for representations. There being no speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District again and still for Thursday, April 27th, 2025. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district. Today, we are located on the Tk'emlúps to Secwepemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership we have with Tk'emlúps to Secwepemc and respect the territory and land on which we gather today. Welcome back to Director Rob O'Toole, and congratulations to you on your new role as the Mayor of Sun Peaks Mountain Resort Municipality. And we have established that alternate Director Bepple is here for Director Newstater. Library update. The Thompson-Nicola Regional Library is excited to launch a full slate of literacy-based programs for its 2025 spring and summer season. From story time and STEM to a senior summer in bloom tea party, there are fun, free programs for every age. Registration opens on April 22nd, and further information is in your folders and online at tnrl.ca. Solid Waste and Recycling Department update. And as a reader and a writer and a book publisher, I'm unsure how I feel about the following item, but the TNRD has begun a new chapter in providing recycling opportunities for residents. In partnership with Planet Earth Recycling, the TNRD is launching a book recycling pilot program as of April 15th at 2 solid waste facilities. Book recycling will be available at the following facilities as part of this one-year pilot program: the South Thompson Eco Depot in Pritchard and the Westwold Transfer Station in Westwold. At these facilities, books will be accepted in any condition, free of charge, residential quantities only. If you are thinking of throwing a book in the garbage, and that is where every part of me as a reader and writer just rebels at the idea of throwing a book in the garbage, but it happens. Please don't judge a book by its cover. Planet Earth Recycling will collect all of these books at these facilities to be sorted for reuse, donation, or recycling. Residents are reminded that books cannot be recycled in curbside carts or at most depots because Recycle BC does not excuse me, accept hardcover or softcover books. Along with TNRD solid waste facilities included in this pilot program, there are multiple locations within the city of Kamloops where you can recycle used books for free, including the TNRD North Kamloops Library. A gentle reminder to all board members to please refrain from taking telephone calls in the main foyer by the reception counter. The area is often busy with visitors and staff, and taking calls here can disrupt the flow and create noise that affects everyone. We have areas just outside the boardroom where you can take a call, or if you know in advance, you're welcome to ask Livia or reception to reserve a meeting room for you, as that offers more privacy and a much quieter environment. Using these spaces will help maintain a professional and welcoming atmosphere in the foyer. Upcoming meetings: May 14th, Policy and Governance Committee at 10 a.m., Parks and Trails Committee at 1:30. May 15th, Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting at 9 and regular board meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon. Upcoming events: we have the Southern Interior Local Government Association Convention in beautiful Merritt from April 29th to May 2nd. Looking forward to going there. Federation of Canadian Municipalities will be at the Rogers Centre in Ottawa from May 29th to June 1st for those directors who are attending that. And the out-of-town board meeting for TNRD directors will be in beautiful Clinton on June 11th and June 12th. Today in your blue folders, you will find regular mail, and in the event of an emergency, if the fire alarm sounds, leave by the safest exit doors, either at the rear of the room or at the main entrance. Go down the staircase, exit the building, and please assemble in the staff car parking lot at the rear of the Paramount Theatre across the street. Do not run. Please do not use the elevators. If you have issues with mobility, please advise the corporate officer that you might need assistance in the event of an emergency evacuation. So much paper. All right, additions to deletions from the agenda. I understand we have an addition, Director Hayward. All right. Nope, that's going to be under new business, so we're all right. Do we have any additions to deletions from the agenda? No. We have the minutes of the regular board meeting held on March the 27th. We do have a recommendation.
Move the minute.
Vice Chair Smith, thank you. Seconded by Director Karpuk, thank you. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. That is carried. We move on to item 7.1, zoning amendment bylaw number 2869. Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier in the month, somebody that lives near this facility reached out to me with some concerns around the water and just what was going on there. I'm concerned that we're rubber stamping something that needs a keener eye, and that while environmental concerns may fall with the province, we all have a responsibility to the land. The environmental study on this project was done in 2017. From what I understand, there's been numerous issues at this facility since that time. Therefore, I would like to make a motion requesting a new, up-to-date environmental study focused on the impact to the wetlands, the water, and the endangered species that was alluded to in the 2017 report be done prior to third reading, please. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, would someone like to second that? Director Stankey, thank you. Discussion. Director Thorpe, is there anything you wanted to add for the benefit of the other board members who haven't been involved in the
Okay,
discussion?
Sorry. So what has happened is, like I said, somebody reached out to me with some concerns about it. And so I took a closer look at things, and I reached out to Alex, and Alex was kind enough to provide me with the environmental study that was done in 2017. There were a number of issues in that 2017 report that sort of raised red flags for me. They talked about the sensitivity of the ecosystem. They talked about an endangered or threatened species that they didn't specifically name because of some kind of potential financial impact. There's a water, like a pond. It's literally between the pad where they're curing it and the storage area. They talked about the leach pond integrity with the liner, and that given the water table, it's basically right where the leach pond liner is. And if there was anything happened to that leach pond liner, that there could be environmental impact. They talked about never extending the pads to the north or off pad because of the. And then there was something in the more recent report that alluded to a water sample, and there was something in that water sample. So I've got some concerns, and I'd really like to take a closer look at this just to make sure we're doing what is right. Thank you.
I have Director O'Reilly and then Director Sarai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be supporting the recommendation that's in front of us that's been put forward. I think it's unfair to an applicant to basically say, hey, this is what we need. They provide it. And they've done all of this work that's been signed off and stamped by trained professionals and engineers. And then we come back and say, oh, actually, no, we're moving the goalposts on you. We're changing what our requirements are. And I think that sets precedent, not just for this, but any future developments. We set goalposts and that's what's in place. If we want to change what our requirements are in the big picture for all applications, that's something we should do. But to change the rules on an application by application basis when they've already met the rules that we've given them, I don't think it's fair to an applicant. I also don't think it's fair to anybody that's considering to invest in the TNRD. And, our staff go and say, hey, this is what we need, and hopefully it will get through. And then it comes here and we say, well, no, we've changed our mind actually. And, I just don't think that's fair. And so I won't be supporting the recommendation that's in front of us.
Director Sarai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just on Director Thorpe's comments that resident reached out. So I'm just wondering if staff have the same concerns that were shared by Director Thorpe.
Through the chair, we have not received any information from any of the neighbors or any property owners. So we were relying on the fact that there were approvals in place through the Ministry of Environment and that those reports were provided to the ministry. So they're the authority having jurisdiction on that. So we were relying on that.
Supplemental, Madam Chair. There was a comment made that there was prior concerns, numerous concerns brought forward. Is staff aware of those, or is that?
Through the chair, the applicant and Ministry of Environment are aware of that, so that was disclosed in the report. And then the follow-up and the things that have to be done, I imagine, are between the ministry and the property owner under their approval for the composting, under the organic matter recycling regulation.
And just on those comments, and I agree with Director O'Reilly that this is something that's been, the process has been followed. And I think that's what we need to do and let the province decide. So I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. I have Directors Laird, Sow, Kerslake, and Thorpe. Director Laird.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just referring to the staff report there, under referrals and liaison, that TNRD Environmental Services has no objection in relation to Director Thorpe's request for another environmental assessment. Did our TNRD Environmental Services, having no objection, was there any other study that they based that decision on? Thank you.
Through the chair, no, there's no other study. But their comments were just the fact that there is a need for this in the region. And so that is an appropriate type of use. It has to locate somewhere. But then the decision of the board is whether this is the appropriate location or not. But there's no other studies. There was the 2017 report. Then there was a 2023 riparian condition and impact assessment. That's referred to in the report. That was all part of the public process. And no other reports were done.
I have Director Kerslake and then Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to comment in the report here and concerns about the water, the riparian area protection regulation assessment was completed and accepted by the province on September 23rd, 2023.
Thank you, Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I guess because I have that 2017 report, maybe I have a little bit more information than you do. So I apologize for that. That's kind of puts me on an unfair playing field. I agree that we do need to have a facility somewhere. When I talked to a few people about, kind of had a general conversation that I was going to bring this up, there were two options. I could look at asking that there be more of an environmental study done, which would still keep the first and second reading in play. Or I could have just simply looked at saying, no, I'm not in favor of this, and hopefully people would support me, and then it would be defeated. If that was defeated, then the proponent has to go all the way back to step one, is my understanding. So I'm trying to find a middle ground with dealing with what are needs in the region, with dealing with what the proponent wants to do, at the same time dealing with what residents are telling me is issue, and having a concern for the environment. So this was, to me, the middle ground for that.
Thank you. Director Blackwell.
Yeah, a question through the chair to staff. And this is under the concept that people may not want to put themselves on the public record to complain about this through the public hearing process. Is there an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of staff or add comments that may not become part of the report off the record to staff?
Through the chair, if people reach out to staff directly with these concerns, we answer questions. If they want something on the record, then we encourage them to put it in writing so that it's included as part of this, or to attend the public hearing in person so they can explain that. We don't third hand explain or try to interpret what people commented to us, but typically we answer questions, and when we do provide input, or they do provide input to us and we explain the process, they usually put something in writing or come in person.
Yeah, thank you for confirming what I thought. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? No. No other questions or comments on the motion? All right, Director Thorpe, would you be able to just read the motion once more, since no one has it, we don't have it written down, just to remind people?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion requesting a new up-to-date environmental study focused on the impact to the wetlands, water, and the endangered species alluded to in the 2017 report be done prior to third reading.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. We have Director Laird and Director Thorpe. Anyone else? All those opposed? All right, the motion is defeated. We move on to the motion that is here under item 7.1 in your agenda, that public hearing input and staff report be considered, and if no amendments are proposed, that zoning amendment bylaw number 2869/2025 be read a third time. Would someone like to make that motion? Director Ranta, thank you. Director Sarai, any discussion on this? Director Hall? No? Okay. Okay. That's okay. Some people are very subtle when they want to talk, and some people are not subtle, and sometimes it's hard to tell what's subtle and what's just scratching your ear. Anyone have any questions or comments on this recommendation? It's a good thing it's not an auction room. Questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of the recommendation? Anyone opposed? We have Director Thorpe opposed. Anyone else? The motion is carried. Item 7.2, zoning amendment bylaw number 2874. We do have two recommendations. We would like to move the first one. And we just have a couple of City of Kamloops people leaving. They do have a minister meeting right now. So we'll just thank you. Director Thorpe moves recommendation number 1. Who'd like to second that? Director Blackwell, thank you. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. And recommendation number 2. Director Ranta, thank you. Seconded by Director O'Toole. Any discussion? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That one is carried. Delegations, invited presentations. Very pleased to have 2 delegations today. And first off, we would like to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Amedeo Vecchio regarding Ranger Week. He is here from the Rocky Mountain Rangers, which certainly have a very long and very storied history in Kamloops and the surrounding area. So welcome, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and honorable directors, visitors, and guests, and some very familiar faces that I know. Very good and very nice to see everybody. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Amedeo Vecchio. I'm a purebred Kamloopsian, for lack of a better word. Went to Cam High, spent time in the regular Army. I'm in my 42nd year in the Canadian Army. I was the commanding officer for 5 years, from 2018 to 2023. And now I work at division headquarters as a planner, so I work in a cubicle. So there. I just got back from 2 tours. I spent time training the Ukrainian Army to thwart the Russian incursion, which is a good thing. And I just got back on my 2nd tour after working with American Task Force Inherent Resolve, and that's to get rid of the last remnants of ISIS and Daesh in the Republic of Iraq, and working with the Kurdistan forces, et cetera, in there. So I'm very honored to be here, Madam Chair, Madam Directors. This is our first inaugural meeting that the Rocky Mountain Rangers are presenting here. But I want to preface that I'm here representing Lieutenant Colonel Tory White, and he is the current commanding officer, and Regimental Sergeant Major Chief Warrant Officer David Moon. So I still have a key to the armories, for lack of a better word, and I show up there in the middle of the night when I'm doing my civilian job, and I'm a corporal in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That's what I do in my civilian job, and I do recognize a few people in a good way. So with your bit of levity is always good. So, all right. So welcome. My purpose of the presentation, Madam Chair, honorable members and visitors and media, is to shape the ground, for lack of a better word, as we call it in the infantry, to tell you about the Rocky Mountain Rangers. People have heard of us. They get us confused with the Rocky Mountaineers, the Rocky Mountain Ranger Army Cadet Corps, which is part of the regimental family. But we're the real deal, for lack of a better word. We're a reserve unit, part of 39 Brigade. which is BC, which is part of the 3 Canadian Division, which is the Army of the West from the Lakehead to Victoria, and part of the Canadian Army and part of the Canadian Armed Forces. So I thank you for everybody's indulgence, and I hope you find this presentation welcoming. Slide. All right, so what is just an update on the agenda? What is the Army Reserve? I'll give you a unit update. Where are we heading in 2025? Building a legacy dinner, which we just had, which was an A-list event. We knocked it out of the park. And I don't know if any people were here for it. I know Councillor Bass was, and I'm sure I'm gonna hopefully echo for her. She had an awesome time. And support and questions. All right, slide. Okay, what is the primary reserve? The primary reserve now is a term that is coined now. In the old days, in there, it was called the militia. The militia has a positive connotation, but the odd negative one that you see across in there. Well, we are reservists, so we're twice as citizens. We're trained to the same standards of the regular Army. I want to make that abundantly clear. Like they call us part-time soldiers. They say sometimes the standard is different. Absolutely not. I can tell you I've been to Afghanistan, twice to Iraq, and a few other places unmentionable, and I can tell you that it's a plug-and-play concept. Reserve soldiers, they plug and play with regular full-time professionals, and we go there, we get a bit of build-up training, and then we go and we gun and run, for lack of a better word, and or training, mentor, and peacekeeping, which I've done. So the primary reserve is divided into 3 components. We have the Canadian Army Reserve, which is we have approximately 42 different regiments. We have 9 different reserve brigades in 4 Canadian divisions. So basically a regiment is what you have here. A brigade is basically provincial, if you want to put it, right? And a division is a sector of the country. 3 Canadian division is Army of the West, as we used to call it, and their emblem was the Doll sheep. 4 Canadian division is in Ontario. 5 Div is Sector de l'Est, or in Quebec, and 5 Canadian division is all the Atlantic provinces. You have the Royal Canadian Naval Reserve, and they augment the Royal Canadian Navy. You can see now that you see the word Royal and Canadian Army. About 10 years ago, we got back to our genesis because in 1967, the Minister of National Defense at the time decided, see a few heads nodding, is that they wanted to get rid of the, again, I'm not a politician, I've been a soldier and a cop all my life in there. They wanted to get rid of the name, so they unification 1967. Everybody wore the green uniform, and we just had just a little itty bitty badge just over our breast pocket to denote Army, Navy, and Air Force. But now we have the Royal Canadian Navy, which have the executive colonel in uniform, Canadian Army, which you see pips and crowns like the British Army is our genesis, unlike stripes, and the Royal Canadian Air Force, which has the rondelle, which is that circle on a plane. We have the Air Reserves, of course. They supplement the Royal Canadian Air Force, and we have Special Forces Reserves. We have, and it's public knowledge, we have JTF2, Joint Task Force 2, which is a Tier 1 operational unit, same as Delta, Ranger, Special Forces, and U.S. Navy SEALs, Tier 1, top notch. And then we have CSOR, Special Operations Support Regiment, based at Canadian Forces Base Petawawa, and they're Tier 2. They're kind of a Ranger support. They do the outer cordon. JTF2 does the inner cordon, and they do the business. All right, slide. All right, let's talk about home front here on the Kamloops front. Now, I want to mention that the Rocky Mountain Rangers, 1908, we became the Rocky Mountain Rangers. We were the 172nd Battalion, then the 102nd Battalion. We never went overseas in World War I as a formed unit because we weren't big enough. Well, I wouldn't say we weren't big enough. Leaders at the time decided certain regiments fought as a unit, like let's say the Seaforth Highlanders, the 48th Highlanders, the Queen's Own Rifles, Storied Regiment of the Canadian Army. We augmented in there. So basically we were piecemealed and put companies, roughly 134 dudes at the time, into different units. So the Primary Reserve Regiment within 39 Brigade. Regimental headquarters in Kamloops, established 1908, and this year is our 117th birthday. I'm very proud to wear the regimental cap badge. We have 2 subunits, Alpha Company and Regimental Headquarters in Kamloops, and B Company in Prince George. We did not have a military presence in Prince George until 2011. So at that time there, the commanding officer at the time, with a lot of will from the people of Prince George, civil governance, political governance, and military governance, decided that, yeah, we need a proper military presence up north. And certain things are coming to fruition, AKA current events. Our primary task is to train, recruit reserve infantry soldiers to augment Canadian militaries during local, which is Operation Lentus, fires and floods, which we basically leave our jobs, our families, and we go in there and we go there until the business is done. National and international deployments, or what we call expeditionary operations. Slide. Okay, what we do, we're infantry soldiers. In the Army, you have basically the infantry. Those are the men and women who walk, carry heavy weights on their back, eat pretty poorly, and get very little sleep. I say that tongue in cheek. We have the artillery, who basically put fires out, as they're called. And you can see the artillery used every year. If you go to the national parks, Operation Palachi, where we do avalanche control with the National Park Service. So we're primary combat fighters, and our response for closing in and engaging the enemy. Kind of a hard word, but at the end of the day, that's what we do. Since 2003, when we first went into Afghanistan, into Tora Bora, after 9/11, which a day that we'll never forget, until I was the last battle group to leave Afghanistan on my rotation, is that we shared the same blood as the regular Army. We train one night a week, usually on a Wednesday, and the occasional weekend a month, just to keep our skill sets up. We support Canada's defensive objectives, home and abroad, and we're at the whim and the will of Prime Minister and Council. Next. What we offer, we offer a unique job, and it is a job. You get paid for it. When I joined in 1982, you get paid about $11.75. Things have changed. I had more hair then. That was a joke. So a unique job that works around the average school and work week. In other words, from 6 until 10. And it's local. Our armory is located at 1221 McGill Road. And those armories were first occupied in 1984. I don't know if anybody remembers the old armories at 311 Battle Street, the old drill hall. Anybody remember that, sir? Absolutely, right? Iconic, right? And some of those drill halls exist. If you go to Revelstoke, I'm going to say Cusp, and some of the other companies, you'll still see them. So during the summer months, we offer full-time employment, which this year starts the 8th of May, and it's a 5-year contract, a 5-year initiative in order to give full-time employment. Many years ago, it was called Summer Youth Employment Program under Canada Manpower. Who remembers that? Absolutely, Canada Manpower, right? And I'm a product of that organization. So I joined, I was in high school, wanted adventure. 42 years later, I'm still here. Gotta love it. We offer training courses in support of, the courses mirror what the regular full-time Army does. We have competitive pay. We get paid 85% of the regular force wages. Not bad. Okay. And comprehensive benefits and educational support incentives. So we give, you can apply for school credits in regards to post-secondary education towards diplomas and undergraduate bachelor degrees. Slide. Unit update. Training across Canada and the US, we have deployed to Latvia. So Latvia right now is the new game in town, for lack of a better word. It's not a game. It's a deployment. It's called EFP, Enhanced Forward Presence. You can Google it. And that's NATO's commitment to thwart anything from the east is going to happen. And you can read between the lines there. We have a full brigade over there, and it's multinational in there. And Canada has the lead on one of the brigades. We have soldiers in Germany on Operation Unifier, and that support the commitment to training and shoring up the capabilities of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. We have members in the United Kingdom, Camp Lid and Camp Nook, all public knowledge, and their job is to train the Ukrainian soldiers. We have members in Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon, and they're what's called CTAT. They're combined training teams. In Jordan, they support the Jordanian Armed Forces, and in Lebanon, the Lebanese Armed Forces. Now, I want to make it clear, the Lebanese Armed Forces. And Iraq, and that's the mission that I was on, Iraq and Kuwait, and that's basically to be part of the American Task Force Inherent Resolve to get rid of all the nasty people of ISIS and Daesh.
This unit is pretty competitive. We won the patrol team competition, 3rd year in a row. It's not for the faint of heart. It's no sleep, carrying heavy weights, doing skill sets under pressure, both mental and physical fatigue. We just had a unit change of command. Tori White, who lives in Kelowna, and he's an accomplished, he just got out of the regular force after 35 years. When you see him, you can't miss him. He's got as much bling as I do on my uniform. Very nice man, incredibly knowledgeable, and the unit is very, very lucky to have him. 2003, we provided support to the wildfire, and also we provided support to Op Laser, which is during the COVID from 2020 to 2022. I hope I got that right. And we supported Remembrance Day across the interior BC. And slide, please. All right, this is what we just had. We just had a legacy dinner. We haven't had one since 2016. The last dinner we had when Her Honor, Madame Gouchon, at that time, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia was here. And I don't know if anybody was here for that. I just know a bit of tongue in cheek. I looked after the dinner and somebody stole my gavel. So that's why that sticks in my mind. But we just had on the 5th, a wonderful A-list class event at TRU. It was a dinner. It was not just a dinner. The purpose for it was to build a legacy. And that's to basically shore up what the Rangers have done in Kamloops, where we are now, and where we're going to keep that legacy forward. In 2019, I took the regiment to France. And one member in this office was almost ready to go with us. And hopefully the gentleman was, and the honorable member here is going to join us again. Hopefully some other people from there. We went to Amiens and Valenciennes and all the battle honors. It was fantastic. It was something that galvanized, and there were a lot of tears there. We brought our association in there. So the dinner was fantastic. We had 177 people show up. The dinner was attended by friends of the regiment, kind of who's who. The ladies wore their finery. The gentlemen had their finest uniforms and apparel on. We had the Kamloops Pipe Band. Yeah, $120 plate for Kamloops. I'm still scratching my head on that one, but people paid for it. And it was a phenomenal event. So that was the invitation that was sent out. Just thought I put that in there just to see that when we put on something, we go all out in there just to showcase what the men and women do. Slide. Support recruiting. Recruiting and retention is always our Achilles heel, for lack of a better word. Is during the war years, when the appetite was there, people were coming in, yeah, I want to do my part for Canada. I want to do my part for defending democracy, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty noble cause, right? Both serving and new members did. Now sort of thing, you know, we have competitive interests sort of thing. Is you have family, you have a job, you have time to do this on it. But recruiting it makes the person twice a citizen, and it leaves a legacy for you and your family in there. Maybe I'm a bit biased. I would say yes a bit on it. 42 years in uniform. I still see the light, and I still, when I look in the mirror, put on the uniform and saying, yeah, absolutely I do. In both uniforms, I want to add in there. The dinner was a perpetuation of that legacy moving forward. We are going to have one next year on April 11th. Mark the calendar for that on it. And we're going to have it at the Colombo Lodge this time. And so we're picking a new venue, new people in there. We're going to continue in there. But the Rocky Mountain Rangers are your regiment, Madam Chair, fellow directors and guests. They're your regiment. These are people that at a call will get out of their civilian clothing, put on the gear, and do the King's business in there. They're honorable people. And yeah, absolutely. The beauty about the reserves, you can have your cake and eat it too sometimes. The way I put it is that you can serve and still stay within the local area and not have a heavy disruption on your family to go away for training. All the training is local, that the basic training, but then advanced training, we have training centers all over Canada. We try to keep things in the Western here. Central, they do it at Meaford. We do it in places like Wainwright, Suffield, wonderful vacation spots or not in there. So yeah, that's what we have so far. And slide. And Madam Chair, directors at large and folks, I would invite any questions and answers because I'm awfully keen to answer them to the best of my ability.
Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel. And you mentioned Rocky Mountaineer and Rocky Mountain Rangers. And an interesting way that they sort of come together a little bit, separated by a few decades, is that one of the things that I believe is pointed out to Rocky Mountaineer passengers as they come up the Fraser Canyon are the 2 railway bridges at Cisco. One of the highlights of the trip through the Fraser Canyon for the people on the Rocky Mountaineer. During World War II, I believe this was after Pearl Harbor, when the danger of an attack on the West Coast was thought to be nigh. The Rocky Mountain Rangers from Kamloops were deployed to the Cisco railway bridges in the Fraser Canyon to guard them against possible enemy attack. I understand that you do have photographs in your archives, and I would love to see those at some point, but just a little nice convergence of the two things that sound very similar, separated by several decades.
Madam Chair, you are 100% correct. Absolutely. And I do say that during World War II, I want to add, and then I'll take any questions, is that we did deploy because we had an invasion in North America in the Aleutian Islands of Kiska. And as such, we were there. We lost 2 members there. And so Kiska is not an official battle honor. I've been trying for years to get it on there, but working with DHH, Director of History Heritage, it's moving up a rope. So that's one of my missions is to get the battle honor of Kiska put on our regimental colors, which are our treasured possession. So I invite any questions. Madam Chair, thank you.
Director Grenier and then Director Onslow.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Could you describe the ages and for recruitment of your folks?
Super. You can join at 16 with mom and dad signing on the dotted line, and you can stay now until 65, which is bonus for me. Because yeah, I know. Originally, we had to leave. Very good question. And very nice to see you again. Originally, you had to leave at 55, but then we had a capacity gap, so they raised it to 60. But then if you have certain skill sets, I have certain skill sets in regards to civil affairs and psychological operations that we don't do in Canada, but we do overseas as a CIMIC operator. They've extended me to 65, so I was happy as can be. So you can stay until 65, as long as you meet universality of service, medical, dental. I just did my physical fitness last week, and if I can do it, anybody can. You just got to switch it off.
Thank you, Director Onslow.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel. Sounds like you've had an amazing career and one that you should be very, very proud of.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the recruitment because I actually have never heard of your group and I'm relatively new to British Columbia within 7 years. But what sort of recruitment efforts are geared towards the younger people, like the ones that are coming out of high school or entering university?
Good question. There is a big recruiting plan that the big army has, but sometimes sort of thing that's somewhat lost on the local front, which is a very good question. We try to go to schools, we go to the local university, but we have to basically tread on very careful waters when we hit the high schools in regards to it. And it has to be approved by certain levels and certain things have to be met. We can't show up there in regards to this is what we do. You know, you can't start off by we close with and destroy the enemy, right? So there's a lot of the military now does more work with the people and the environment as such in there. So we're focused towards that. Do we have a warfighting capability? Absolutely we do, without reservation or hesitation. But generally here, for lack of a better word, we're more on the domestic front in there. We try to hit different fairs, job fairs. We had an open house on the 5th, included ambulance, police, fire, search and rescue, adventure tourism from TRU. We had about 150 people show up, but we were competing with the home show in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sao.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Lieutenant Colonel, for your presentation. I have some upcoming community meetings I'm setting up in Area 8 in North Thompson there, and it just suddenly occurred to me, do you have a community outreach individual in your unit that I can approach and say, and extend the offer? Would they like to come to my community meeting and do a short presentation to my residents about your fine work? That's one question. And then secondly, is there an intake certain time of year, or is it just year round? Anybody interested can apply? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Number one is that you can use me as a point of contact. The unit is busy on domestic operations and training. I'm the de facto commanding officer when the real commanding officer is not here. Because I've been around and I can navigate through the labyrinth of people. Maybe I have a interesting name and I'll leave it there, but you can use me as a contact. And the second point, sir, is that we're recruiting 24/7. Absolutely. So there's a website recruiting in there under Rocky Mountain Rangers, general recruiting as such. And we're competitive in regards to pay, benefits, and opportunities. The key thing that I want to leave, and that's a very good question, sir, it's the adventure. It's something that we have three kinds of people that join the military. And this is me, one man's opinion, one person's opinion after 42 years in uniform. You have the young people that are 16, 17 that want to do things, that don't want to stay home and with their controller, right? They want to get fit. They want to challenge themselves. You have the people that are looking for a military career to supplement and augment a civilian career. In other words, 2 pillars and 2 tiers going up. That was me. I spent time in the regular army, but that was a different story. And then you have the person that's around 45 or 50 that said, you know what, got a family, kids are on 18, they're not tugging at mom and dad's coattails anymore. I always wanted to do this, still in good shape. I play a bit of hockey or squash. I want to join the Army. I want to do something. So those are 3 types of folks we get. And it's fantastic to see them during basic training, what they offer, what they bring.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Director O'Toole.
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, but thank you for your presentation, Lieutenant Colonel. As you saw me nodding, it brought back a lot of memories growing up as a kid. My stepfather served from 65 to 70, so he took part in I was born in 67, the year of the integration of the military. Told me lots of stories. He was RCAF. And my brother-in-law was based out in Manitoba at the base near Brandon. And
probably near Shiloh?
Yeah, Shiloh. And he served in Afghanistan as well too. And I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do in your service. And just kind of more of a kind of a note of sorts. But I know that when my stepfather came into my life, number one, it shortened my time span in the bathroom because he was banging on the door after 5 minutes. But a lot of that military growth and development that he experienced in those years would go on to form and shape who he was as a person, as a man, as a father. And the Canadian military does a lot of great things in developing young men and women into the leaders they become later in life. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. The military does. All that I'm saying is that, you know, I wouldn't say just look at me, is that it gave me balance, it gave me structure. And definitely being a police officer for 35 years, it's helped me exponentially in the 2 provinces which I've served. You treat people with kindness, with respect, the rule of law, not just in the policing, the rule of law when it comes to humanity, both domestically and overseas. Those are values that are inculcated in there, absolutely. And that's the pillar that I wake up every morning to.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Vecchio.
Madam Chair, directors at large, visitors, I thank you for your time for our inaugural meeting to your fine organization. Thank you, ma'am.
And we have a second delegation from Interior Health here to talk to us about water and sewage servicing in rural residential development. Not sure who's taking the lead on this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone in the room. Appreciate the opportunity to present. So to get started, my name is Anita Ely. I'm a specialist environmental health officer, specializing in how communities are planned and designed to impact the health of the community members that live in them. And my presentation today is about considering water and sewer servicing in rural residential development. Can I? Okay, press the button. There we go. Perfect. Just before I begin, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Decal-Dene, the Tanaha, the Silkatine, and in particular, because we're in the Thompson-Nicola regional area, the Inglakatma, the Statliam, the Haughton, and the Seage. I'd also like to start off by introducing ourselves and our teams. Evan Houle is with me. He's training on our team. And both of us are specialist environmental health officers with the Healthy Community Development Team. We work collaboratively with municipalities, regional districts, and First Nations governments, as well as other community partners to plan and create physical and social social environments that support the health of community members at a population level. Today as well, online, I have with me Ivor Norland, Manager of Drinking Water Systems Program, and as well, Gordon Mosley, Specialist Environmental Health Officer with our Environmental Assessment Team. And they're here to answer any specific questions that you might have after the presentation related to water and sewage regulations and policies. And all of us are part of Interior Health's population and public health portfolio. I'd also just like to mention that partnering with communities, such as all the communities that you represent, is a priority for Interior Health. And recently, we've had additional resources added to our team, and that's to increase our capacity to support collaborative work with local governments to create healthier community development. And those resources at a community or at a program level, we have decided to direct the largest proportion of those resources to the Thompson-Nicola and Caribou regions. So we have 3 new people serving in this last year, this area. Okay. There we go. Okay, so why are we here? We understand that you are currently developing 2 new OCPs for electoral areas L&P and M&N. And a main challenge that is emerging is how to achieve the mandated increase in housing while also protecting the environment. So we are here today to talk about things to think about when developing properties that are serviced by on-site sewage systems and drinking water. And then, of course, to answer any questions. So the first part is we need to consider what is a healthy housing. So currently, there's a lot of attention, and rightly so, being placed on affordability. And in response, there's been a mindset that's starting to emerge that constructing as many housing units as possible to lower the demand and therefore the cost is the most important thing. And other aspects of housing are not as important. However, healthy housing is a holistic view that housing should meet all the physical and social needs of community members. So I want to draw your attention to the importance of thoughtful planning at the community level where housing is located. Where housing is located, particularly in rural settings, has implications for the degree of exposure to environmental hazards, such as floods, landslides, wildfires, and sewage contamination, which is the focus of this presentation. Location also relates to density. Are homes close to or far away from each other? At a community level, is there an opportunity to increase economies of scale, whereby more people contribute to the cost of constructing, operating, and maintaining infrastructure? Okay, so the rest of the presentation is going to focus on sewage and water servicing. On the screen, there the direct impacts which come from ingesting, the direct impacts of which come from ingesting disease-causing bacteria, viruses, and other microbes which have been tracked into the house from a failing septic system or have contaminated drinking water or recreational water. And the other ones are nitrates, are also a natural chemical parameter that come from any animal waste, such as manure or sewage. And I'll talk about that more in the next slide. However, it's just in this slide to note that high concentrations of nitrates are also harmful to humans. Now, the cartoon, although it's a bit crude, is one of those, a picture tells 1,000 words. And so contaminants from sewage go into the environment in one place, and we are exposed to them again in another. In rural settings, servicing is about keeping sewage and water far apart, either through large parcels with lots of space or with community water and sewer systems. When community members express their value or their priority to protect the lake, it usually relates to nitrates because they can result in visible changes in the form of algae blooms. Just like when you add fertilizer to your lawn to get it to grow well, nitrates from sewage, when they reach the lake environment, they allow plants and algae to rapidly grow. And then the algae can produce toxins that make people sick. They can gunk up water treatment systems and filters. They can create poor water quality for recreating, and that ultimately impacts businesses, communities, especially those that rely on tourism. Requiring a more high-tech sewage system can cause because the natural features of that property aren't suitable for sewage, or the system has failed, that can cause significant cost to individual households. And at a community level, multiple failing sewage systems or cumulative impact of multiple systems can trigger the need to develop community sewer systems that can stretch the community and local government resources. There are some important things to know about the sewage context. First, the sewage system regulation is structured around a professional reliance model. That's here in BC. This means that sewage contractors and engineers and their respective governing organizations are responsible for the design, construction, and maintenance of sewage systems and the best management practices that need to be followed. It is designed to, the sewage system regulation, is designed to address direct health hazards, meaning those disease-causing bacteria and viruses. The sewage system does not require people to consider the long-term sustainability of a parcel, nor the cumulative effects of nitrates for many systems in proximity. And so although community sewer systems have high initial cost and are disruptive to install to existing neighborhoods, they have more oversight to ensure best practices are followed and to keep source drinking water far apart from sewage. So I'm going to step through some maps on that picture. Unfortunately, it's the property lines are yellow, so they're hard to see on this screen in this room. But what it is, the yellow lines in the images are property lines that show parcels along a cul-de-sac road, and each dot represents a well. When I look at this image, I think, well, that doesn't look so bad. The wells seem spaced apart. However, if we look at it with the satellite image over top, where houses, accessory buildings, and driveways can be seen, I'm already starting to think, maybe perhaps there isn't as much space as I originally thought. And if most of those wells are located in the middle of the parcel, can their sewage stay far enough away from their drinking water? And what about if their neighbors' sewage systems? Where does that sewage go? So when we think about it on this scale, this is what that cartoon that we were kind of laughing about a few slides back, right? The sewage is going in one place and it's getting drawn up in the well, not too far away. Then if we, whoops, where are they going now? The cul-de-sac where we were just looking at is at the top left-hand corner, because now we've zoomed out a little bit on this community. And consider that most of the lots in this image are serviced by on-site sewage and individual wells. And the groundwater is moving underground towards the lake, carrying with it contaminants from on-site sewage. And wells that are downstream, so closer to the lake, will be drawing up the wastewater that has been added farther upstream away from the lake. And then I have this one last image, which comes from IMAP BC. And this is the same community. You might actually recognize this because it's not far from here, but it is not within the TNRD. The red diagonal lines depict the location of a vulnerable aquifer, meaning it is easy for contaminants to reach the groundwater because the soil structure does not provide any protection. So this series of maps shows how people can be exposed to environmental hazards, in this case, contaminants from sewage, and it relates to the location and the density of housing and how water and sewer are managed at a community level. Now, if we turn to drinking water context, An important concept to know when we're thinking about drinking water is the multiple barriers approach, which is the idea that clean, safe, reliable drinking water results from the protection provided by multiple aspects of a water system. Everything from protecting the source water to proper treatment to having sound distribution systems. For these core elements to function well, there's also has to be good monitoring and management. So for example, governance, how are decisions made? Asset management and operational and maintenance costs. Is someone considering the life cycle of the equipment? Are they being budgeted for? Can the water system apply for grants? Operator knowledge and relationship with their environmental health officer. Is testing being done with the appropriate responses to those tests? Overall, large water systems are faring quite well, and incremental improvements are being made. However, this is not the case for small water systems. A high proportion of systems require updates to be able to reliably provide safe water. Poor governance and asset management is often the reason behind why small systems struggle. Another reason is that upgrades are cost prohibitive, and small water systems that lack economies of scale have limited resources and are not able to apply for grant funding from higher levels of government. And one last thought about water context is the need for systems to be prepared for extreme weather events caused by climate change. And however, many systems do not have the capacity to achieve this. So when we're thinking about managing exposures, we can think about it in three main places. First, we can control the source. So for example, the number of sewage systems in one particular area. We can manage the pathway. So how quickly does the contaminant move through the environment? So for example, can we keep the sewage and the drinking water far away from each other? The other one is applying controls just before it enters our bodies. So treating the drinking water before we consume it. The official community plans provide an opportunity. And so it is very important for the health of residents and the vibrancy of natural settings and for local economies that we carefully consider and plan the way we manage where and how we use drinking water and where and how our sewage returns to the environment. Thoughtful planning starts with identifying settlement areas and looking for opportunities to leverage economies of scale and connect to existing systems to make larger water systems. And generally, larger systems have better governance, funding, and operational capacity. And this also allows rural areas to keep sewage and water far apart and their rural land uses viable, such as agriculture. With climate change, we also need to think about things like, where is this water source? How about in the future? How will the environment change with potential wildfire, flooding, landslides, and drought? And if we consider planning at a property scale, the size of the property and proximity to neighboring wells and sewage systems has implications at the individual property scale too. To ensure long-term self-sufficiency of a lot in terms of on-site sewage, we always recommend that at the very minimum, we have backup areas of land suitable for sewage. Development permit areas are also a tool that protect, development permit areas that protect water sources against sewage are a good practice and planning tool. So TNRD has some, the Kamloops North, North Thompson, and Green Lake OCPs have a portion of a development permit area, but they mostly just say that the professional would assess the system. There have been some other regional districts, such as recently at Christina Lake, where their development permit area related to sewage and protecting lakes is more fulsome and more prescribed, and speak to some of the things that, the gaps that some of the legislation provides. So this is my last slide, and then we'll take questions. So I just wanted to point out that we can continue to work together to support healthy communities in many ways. For example, we can leverage our collective knowledge. You know local communities, the context and planning tools. We know about how planning and design links to health of the population. And we also are familiar with provincial regulations and requirements. We can add capacity to planning and development. So, for example, considering how bylaws, policies, and practices can be improved to support health. We can consider health implications for proposed developments. We can provide community and population health level data. So, for example, supporting your recent regional growth strategy and the indicators, we help to provide some data. We can also support facilitating planning processes. Education and raising awareness. We can be present at planning events such as open houses and public presentations. We can support developing educational resources, offer presentations and workshops to staff, elected officials, and community champions in many community health-related topics, just like I'm doing right now. And for example, we can also facilitate a deeper, more interactive workshop style presentation about sewage and water and get into more details. And that's something that we have done at other regional districts. So overall, we can work to deepen our communication and collaborative working relationships to create healthy communities for all residents to thrive. Thank you, Madam. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions or comments? A lot to digest all at once, but presumably your contact information is available for anyone who would like to reach out to you.
Yes.
There, and just like that, there it is. So if anyone would like to take down the information, and you'll be able to reach out at your leisure if you think of anything. But right now, Director Onslow has a question or comment.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation. I actually, I sit on the Utilities Committee as the Vice Chair with Director Grenier as our Chair. And we have been advocating to the provincial government for sustainable ongoing funding for small and very small water systems. And I'm curious in our advocacy efforts, if we could rely on Interior Health to help us in a situation like that, where we're looking for funding so that these systems do remain safe for the public and not in a state of deterioration. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion and the question. Interior Health does provide, often we're providing letters of support and whatnot. But I'm going to pass that question on to Ivor Norland, who's online. He's the manager of our drinking water systems program and is much more familiar with the topic area you're asked about.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. And not much to add except yes, definitely. Don't have any great answers, as I'm sure that's what everybody at your level knows. It's an ongoing challenge to find sustainable funding and solutions for small systems. But at all times, yeah, reach out to Anita or to me directly. And in any way we can provide support with that advocacy, we will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep. I have Director Lepso and then Director Hayward.
Okay, thank you. And my question is a little different. And it was good to see you at the Shuswap Trail Alliance Working Group meeting. Just wondering if you can very briefly, as we're looking at parks and trails in the TNRD, explain why Interior Health shows up at all the working group meetings for the Shuswap Trail Alliance.
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. And it was good to see you last week too. So our team, one of the first things that we try to do is establish deepen relationships. And we recognize that we can't move any kind of work forward in any community with anybody unless we have personal relationships with people. So part of the reason I'm at every meeting, or our team is at every meeting, is for that part. That Shuswap Trails Roundtable is about creating active transportation, but also recreational trails. But it's grown to be more than that. The people who are at that table all have a value of connecting to land, and there are cultural aspects that come from that, and a lot of community capacity building and relationship building amongst them. And so over time, we have found that being participating in that group, we have had opportunities to participate in healthy communities planning groups for, like, for example, Sicamous and Nisconlith Band. We've had opportunities to participate, help find grant money and participate in active transportation. So for example, Village of Chase, you've had an active transportation planning process that came from that. City of Salmon Arm has just completed an active transportation network plan. So those are the types of things that we're participating with, and keen to work with anybody in any community on any kind of priority linked to health and initiatives that you're interested in moving forward. We will try bringing our resources, our connections, and our expertise to whatever project that your community is interested in.
Thank you, Director Hayward, then Director Sao.
Hi, my question is pardon me, is in regards to small water systems that have been here for decades. Wells that continue to produce and so on and so forth, which were set up many years ago, have a sewer system. But as density grows, do you have any percentages or any idea of how many of these small water systems on a percentage level are now being affected by sewage contamination within the ground? That's an important thing to be able to explain to somebody who has a small water system.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm not aware, and I'll turn to Ivor because he might know better, but I'm not aware of those kinds of studies unless the local community has done some of that work. I know there's a few, again, like that community that I was showing earlier is actually Scotch Creek. And in that Scotch Creek, North Shuswap area, the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, they were looking at identifying where all the septic systems were and going through a liquid waste management plan. And that was part of that. But I'm not quite sure where it's at with the TNRD. So Ivor, I don't know if you can answer the question.
Yeah, like a roll-up statistic, no, and you're right on the right path there, Anita, that it's very area specific. So those liquid waste management planning processes are probably the best source of information. But I think it wouldn't take long for Anita, myself, and the other EHOs to come up with a bit of an arm's length of different communities that have developed, like you say, for 50, 100 years ago, and now are struggling because they weren't built necessarily to be as dense as they are, particularly in some recreational areas around lakes and things like that. So no specific number, just to say that it is out there and it's a case by case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Sao.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm just wondering if your team provides supports or in terms of regional district or local governments grant application to other orders of governments. In the last few board meetings, we've discussed the strategic infrastructure fund that the TNRD is going to go for, and there's two water filtration system that we're looking at for Savannah and my area in Vavenby. So I was wondering, as our TNRD staff go through that process, would your team or organization do you typically give some letters of support and that sorts? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Absolutely. Yes, we do letters of support. We actually also connect communities. Quite often we're networked with staff, but some elected officials as well. And we find grants or suggest grants for sitting at tables and advisory tables or community tables. And, the community comes up with a suggestion about, oh, we'd like to do this, or community champions are really keen on one thing or another. We'll say, oh, hey, there's a grant opportunity coming that's related to that, or this is another one. So we find grants and help people connect to those grants. We also write letters of support, and we connect how, like in this case, you were talking about infrastructure. So how does the infrastructure, why does improving whatever it is, the infrastructure you're improving, how does that going to connect to improving the health of the people that live there? So we add that little bit of extra persuasion of why this particular project is important. And what I thought was kind of one more thought, I can't remember. Anyways, yes, so we do that, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? No? All right, thank you very much to you and your team for coming out today, and don't be surprised if you get a couple of questions in the email in the upcoming days. Days, weeks, and months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we move on to item 9.1, which concerns the Community Water and Wastewater System Regulation and Management Bylaw number 2855. We have 3 recommendations. Director Haughton, seconded by Director Smith. Thank you. Any discussion on recommendation number 1, first and second reading? No, thank you to staff for wrestling all this together into one coherent document. When you see something saying such and such a bylaw is 30 years old, it's probably time to look at it again. No questions or comments on the motion then? All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? That is carried. Director Ranta, thank you. Seconded by, thank you, Director, and I'm blanking on your name again. Getz. I'm sorry. It's, by the time Silga starts in merit, I will have it cemented in my head. Don't worry. I promise that's my motivation. Director Getz, thank you very much. Seconds that. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried, and we have third, Director O'Reilly, seconded by Director Morris. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. I am so carried away by the fact that I am officially on holiday so that I can attend Silga in merit, that it has gone to my head. That's my excuse. We'll all have name tags on too, which is a tremendous help, tremendous help. Item 9.2, electoral areas L and P, fire protection, local service establishment amendment bylaw. Director Haughton is moving recommendation 1. Who'd like to second that? Thank you, Director O'Toole. Any discussion? Director Blackwell.
Yeah, reading this, one property coming on board, are we gonna have to do this every single time another property wants to add to this?
Mr. Vieira put his hand up.
Okay, well, I'll take the first crack at it. Thank you for that question through the chair. We do this kind of one-step process when there's a single property owner comes forward who's immediately adjacent to the existing fire protection area. So it happens every once in a while. Typically, it happens when a new home is built on a property that was previously didn't have a structure on it, so it wasn't included in the original protection area. But more often when we do a larger expansion, that's when we do a referendum, a public process.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? On the motion, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Recommendation number 2. Director Morris, seconded by Director Hall. Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item number 10.1, temporary use permit, number TUP 77 in electoral area M. We have a recommendation. Director Laird, thank you. Seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on this? No discussion on the question, then all those in favor? Is anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 10.2. Director Middleton, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Recommended for approval. Any discussion? Seeing no hands in the air, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 10.3, development variance permit number DVP 125, electoral area M. Director Laird, thank you. Seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on this item? No. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 11.1.1 CAO Verbal Report. Over to you, CAO Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair Roden, and good afternoon, all. I've got a handful of updates I'd like to provide, starting with staff introduction. So we're pleased to announce the newly created position of Asset Manager has been accepted by Mike Winiski, who is sitting just behind me here in the blue suit. Mike has over 15 years of experience specializing in logistics, asset management, and procurement strategy. In his last role at as the Director of Supply Chain at the Dawson Group, Mike led enterprise-wide supply chain, asset management, and capital planning initiatives, delivering significant cost savings and operational efficiencies. Mike's background spans transportation, infrastructure, and logistics, with leadership roles with DP World, BC Rapid Transit, and Canadian Pacific Railway. Mike also holds an MBA from the Beatty School of Business at Simon Fraser University and brings a results-driven approach to driving performance, efficiency, and strategic growth. Mike will be working closely with all of our departments to further adopt the goals as outlined in the asset management plan. His main objective will be to support informed-based decision-making through life cycle planning, risk management, resource allocation, and sustainability. So welcome to Mike. And I think this is his first local government meeting, so it's easy stuff. Second topic was a whole bunch of kind of staff, department, and public meeting updates. So I have another number of updates. So first of all, GFOA board appointment. I wanted to take a moment and share with the board that CFO Fox has been appointed to the GFOA BC board, which is the Government Finance Officers Association. This will be a great opportunity to learn and share best practices from all over BC and across all governments, and proudly represent the TNRD. So congratulations to Carla. Under that same topic, a few financial updates. We've come a long ways, as we've mentioned, as budget ended here recently over the last 7 months. We got the budget approved and completed and uploaded into our financial system, both from a TNRD standpoint and TRHD standpoint. Year-end financial processes have been complete. Audited financials for both organizations are also complete. Tax requisition process for municipalities is done to the province. Continued process and efficiency enhancements are really making a difference as we do our work, and all the requirements that we do with the province are on their way to be complete. So all that being said, we're now in a great position to move forward and continue against working on our strategic plan and the many projects we have in store for this year and the future years. So just thank you to Carla, the finance team, the senior management team, and our entire staff who played a huge role in moving that forward and making it successful. From a public engagement standpoint, there's been a significant number of meetings lately that I just wanted to highlight. A few of them include Turtle Valley Community Meeting. Jamie and I attended on behalf of Director Haughton. There was a great turnout there. The Venables Valley Community Meeting regarding the post-wildfire risk assessment was attended by staff and Director Thorpe, which was successful as well. Harmon Estates Fire Service Review took place in Merritt. That happened recently. And then we have an upcoming meeting with Cherry Creek and Tobiano to discuss fire service. That'll be happening in mid-May. And then just a few dates from our planning team. The next round of public engagement for our 2 official community plans and electorals L and P, M and N will be taking place. And those tour dates are River Shore on May 5th, Pritchard on May 6th, Knutsford on May 7th, Heffley Creek on May 8th, Pinnaton on May 10th, Merritt on the 12th of May, and Lower Nicola on May 13th. Residents are encouraged to come out and give their feedback to help shape the OCP policy in their comments in the communities. The third topic I had was just a quick update on CAO meetings. The CAOs from across the TNRD get together twice per year to learn and share best practices and discuss many of the current issues that we're facing and some of the opportunities. All 11 municipalities are invited, and most recently we had a Teams meeting last week. Getting this group together has proven to be very productive and has allowed for relationship building and some great conversations and the sharing of ideas and experiences. So just wanted to update the board on that. Fourth item was regarding new development application communication. So as we're all aware, ensuring our residents are informed is critically important to the organization. Our communication staff will be working on revamping our email distribution lists to make sure people get more of our notices that affect their local communities and areas. What this will be is a page on our website where people can select an electoral area or municipality to receive TNRD notices directly to their emails. For example, if someone is subscribed in Area A notices, for Area A notices, and there was a development application in Blackpool, for example, they would receive directly to their email. All of our development notices are still posted on our website, and we share them on social media as well. But we just want to continue to get the message out because lately we've been getting a lot of feedback on, I didn't hear that, I didn't know that, you didn't tell me. And we try as best we can, but we can't knock on 45,000 doors or residents' doors. So it's really tough to do. Several other regional districts have a similar process, so we're going to get that up and running in the very near future. The last few topics are the CERO application progress update. And as we can remember, that's the Community Emergency Response Organizations. We were very hopeful on getting a bunch of applicants, and we got more than we ever thought. As of the 9th of April, we've got 18 applications. We're reviewing applications for eligibility right now on a first come, first served basis. We do expect to be oversubscribed, as the maximum funding allowable to this was $10,000 per group. And the funding maximum for the TNRD is $100,000. So we have reached out to the BC Wildfire Service to request additional funding for this opportunity. We've not heard back yet, but I have been in touch with them lately, and we're hopeful that we can continue to pursue this and try to get some more funding. One group has already been trained and is in the process of acquiring their PPE and will be ready to be deployed for BC Wildfire. So we're excited about this, and we're certainly taking advantage in our regional district. Second last topic was Fire Smart rebate. I think that was mentioned a little bit earlier. The TNRD Fire Smart program will be launching a rebate program later this spring. Property owners in electoral areas will be eligible for up to 50% to a maximum of $500 if they do mitigation work on their property, identified by our Fire Smart coordinators. Our total budget for this one is $100,000, and we'll certainly be working with the communities and making sure that people are going to get this rebate if they intend to help us and help themselves clean up their properties and make them fire safe. And then finally, our annual report. It's that time of year again. Our 2024 report has now been published. It has a lot of helpful information about our core services at the TNRD, within our boundaries, our financials, our governance, and the board of directors. It also has information on more than 50 projects completed by our staff in 2024 as part of our core services. So we encourage people to read it, and those will be in your hands at the next meeting, and we will be putting that on social media and on our website here in the next few weeks. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for CAO Hildebrand? Director Getz, do you have any questions? Just reinforcing. Anyone, any questions? No? All right, thank you very much. We move on to 11.1.2, the civic building roof upgrade. They're literally the roof over our heads. There is a staff recommendation. Director Stankey moving the staff recommendation. Thank you
I'll
very
move second.
much. Director Karpuk seconding in that. Any discussion on this? Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 11.1.3, regional grants and sponsorships. We have the list of the spring intake recipients, and we do have a
Move the
recommendation.
recommendation.
Director Thorpe, thank you. And who was seconding that? Director Bass? Any discussion on this? Congratulations to all the organizations receiving grant funding. Any discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 11.1.4, Canada Community Building Fund, Electoral Area A. Director Sow moving the recommendation. Thank you. Who would like to second that? Director Thorpe. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 11.1.5, Canada Community Building Fund Groundwater Exploration Program. Director Thorpe, seconded by Director Haughton. Any discussion on? Sorry, should this be 4 separate recommendations? Corporate Officer Jeremiah, should this be 4 separate recommendations? I don't see any connecting ands in there.
You are correct. They should be 4 separate recommendations. Thank you.
All right, so we have moved recommendation 1, which is regarding Spence's Bridge. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Recommendation 2. Director Smith, seconded by Director Haughton. Discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Recommendation 3. Director Hayward, seconded by Director Thorpe. Discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. And number 4, Director Morris, seconded by Director Blackwell. Me. Any discussion? Director Haughton.
I think this is a good example of how we're using our Canada Community Building Funds to try and find an alternative source of clean drinking water for these various communities, which are now being sourced out of the river. And I think, I hope they're all successful. I think Jamie guaranteed me on Del Oro, you give me 50 gallons a minute of good potable water. So there you go.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Is anyone opposed? That is carried. All right, we move on to the building permit activity report for information. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? No. All right. We move on to item 12.1. We do have a recommendation coming out of the Policy and Governance
Move the
Committee.
recommendation.
Director Bass, seconded by Director Ranta. Any discussion on the communications policy? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. We do have a recommendation coming out of the Electoral Area Directors Committee. Director Thorpe, thank you. Seconded by Director Haughton. Any discussion or questions on this particular item? No. In that case, all those in favor? Is anyone opposed? Thank you. That is carried. We have 1 item of action correspondence that is from the Lower Nicola Indian Band. This is regarding zoning amendment bylaw number 2843, which was approved at the March 6th meeting. And I'm going to move that the board write to the Lower Nicola Indian Band saying that as the motion has been passed, we will not be revisiting it. Anyone like to second that? Thank you, Director Stanky. And perhaps Mr. Kraus, you'd just like to speak to this?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So there is no reconsideration. The bylaw was adopted. The board can direct staff to come forward with a new bylaw, bringing the property back to its previous zoning. But I think in this case, that might be a bit of an extreme measure. The Lower Nicola Indian Band Development Corporation is a business entity of the band. So our expectation was from the applicant that they'd be communicating with the band. And we also sent letters to the Chalouse Farms, which is another business entity that owns property around there. So we followed the correct process. So I did reply by email, but I think a formal letter would be appropriate in this case.
And just to reiterate that we did follow the process in terms of informing all those who might have an interest that this was taking place and that they did have an opportunity to make a presentation.
That is correct.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else have any further questions on this? Yes, Director Lepso.
Just like a clarification, did this come from the Lower Nicola Indian Band itself or somebody else?
The letter came from the executive director of the band. The application was from one of their companies that owns fee simple land right next to the reserve. So the letter itself was from the band or from the executive director of the band saying that they didn't know that this process was happening. But the application was from a company that is owned in a business entity of the band.
You, any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? Director Lepso? Anyone else opposed? The motion is carried. We have a number of items for information. Does anyone have any questions about any of the information items? Want to break anything out of information only jail, as it were? No. All right, we move on to new business. Director Hayward, I understand you have some new business.
Yes, my new business is I would like to move that the board approve an exemption to the electoral area grant and aid policy to increase the Barrier Legion maximum allowable grant to $8,900 for 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Blackwell. Any discussion on this? Director Sao?
Thank you. For my knowledge, maximum allowance, do we have which allowance are we? Oh. Sorry, allowance without the additional financial information, is that the limit we're talking about?
Awesome.
Thank you through the chair. The maximum allowable per group for the electoral area grant and aid is 5,000 per fiscal year.
500 or less, they have a less onerous reporting requirement or supplemental information requirement. Up to 5,000 is fine. But they obviously need to be more rigorous in what they support. And Director Hayward's just asking for an exemption to that 5,000 for this group. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Does anyone else have new business? Alternate Director Bepple, Director Onslow, was your hand? No, okay. Alternate Director Bepple. Sold.
Thanks. Just since I was here last, I was at FCM committee meetings. So I wanted to just give an update. There's two things. One is, I mean, business goes on with the FCM, but I would say the highest priority right now is what's taking up all our bandwidth, which is what's happening with the states. The FCM's position is that they need to support the actions of the federal and the provincial governments in terms of they're getting the direction from those levels of government. But one specific thing that they see that they can do is reach out to local governments in the states. And so as an example, most recently, the FCM sent a delegation to meet with the U.S. Conference of Mayors and also a delegation from Mexican mayors. And the three groups together affirmed the benefits of the North American free and fair trade. So they're trying to support the federal government in that way. In terms of what FCM's other goal is, they haven't lost sight of it. And of course, they're nonpartisan. It doesn't matter who gets elected at the end of the month. And I think this agenda that we have before us is a good example where we are relying so heavily on the Canada Community Building Fund to fund essential infrastructure. The FCM's goal is to get a different fiscal arrangement with the federal government for funding essential, important ongoing infrastructure. So they're calling it the New National Prosperity Partnership. And I guess regardless of who gets elected at the end of the month, that will be the goal, is to try to get ongoing reasonable funding from the federal government in terms of infrastructure. So that's my update.
Thank you very much, Director Haughton. And Director Haughton, I must say, it is good to see you here in the flesh.
No. Actually, that was going to be my comments. I just want to say thank you for all your well wishes. I spent 40 days and 40 nights at Royal Inland, and a lot of you phoned and attended in person, brought your well wishes. The highlights were probably Director Sarai's booster juice and Director Thorpe's slow moving sign that she said she wanted to put on my wheel card over here. That I don't know what that's got some significance, but thanks. I recovered pretty good, and it's glad to be back. I know I said to you, Chair, that I'll be back sooner than later, and everybody said, "Oh, stay home, stay home." And I said, "Well, this is my family. This is better therapy than sitting around at home or laying in bed at the hospital." So good to be back. Thank you.
Can you just share what your favorite name of your booster juice was?
No, it's because you bought it, Director Sarai. It's called Funky Monkey. I asked for Cowboy's Choice.
Anyone else have any new business? It's going to be hard to top that one, but anyone? No? All right, notice of motion, Director Laird.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion is the board expand the composition of the current Finance Committee to 7 directors with representation from 3 electoral area directors, 2 small municipal and 2 large municipalities.
Thank you, and that will come back to us at the next meeting. So not for discussion today, just a notice of the motion that is upcoming. Any other notices of motion? Question period. Any questions from the public? No? We have no need of a closed meeting, so we are adjourned. Everyone have a very happy and joyous Easter weekend.